So I want to go ahead and do my bi-weekly update and give you a look at the garden here. Looking at the apple tree, and I noticed that I'm starting to get a little bit of aphids out here, so we'll just rub them off. They typically show up more on the newer leaves. So let me get into the kind of the newer, younger leaves. You see those little spots there? Those are little aphids that are growing on there. So what we'll do is we'll just basically rub them off. I've noticed that on the younger leaves here, the newer leaves that are just forming, they tend to pick up the aphids more readily than the other ones. So I gotta take a look at the new leaves. There's a few out here where they're around. So, but overall, looking pretty good. Not too many bug bites on the leaves. There's a few scattered, but that's normal. But for the most part, not too bad. I come out here a few times a day, and I've noticed that especially in this 80+ degree weather, I'm going to need to water my plants almost every other day here on the apple tree. It just tends to dry out a lot quicker with so much foliage now growing on here. And I also kind of look at the newer leaves that are more on top here, and they tend to have aphids on the bottom side. So I'll go ahead and a few times throughout the day I'll go ahead and rub them off. Now here are the sugar peas and snap peas. We got them kind of all over scattered throughout the yard, and literally picking them at least every other day, no more than every third day. But pretty much every other day I'm coming through here and getting a basically a large bowl full of sugar snap peas and snow peas. The ones that are sitting here in the buckets, since there's usually only about 7 to 12 plants in here, they tend to not nearly have as much of a harvest as the ones that are in the coolers, because the ones in the coolers are really jam-packed. But these ones are the snow peas here, snap peas, and they're coming in pretty good. This is another one I set up, and one thing I like about how these grow is once they start taking off, they send out those tentacles and they reattach themselves to the adjoining or the next to plant. So eventually this plant will just start growing on its own straight up. I don't have to set up any trellis or poles or anything, support structure. They just kind of grow on their own. Once they get started, they just kind of attach themselves and link up, and then it becomes very easy for it to stand straight up. Now on May the 21st, and also I'll do this on June the 21st, I plant my pumpkins. In order to have pumpkins arriving October 1st through October 31st, I need to plant them somewhere between May 21st to June 21st. So I've already done the early portion of them, and went ahead and planted those on May 21st, and then on June 21st I'll plant the other half of the seeds, and so I'll have pumpkins this year. The cabbages, I ended up having to come through here and basically put the paint strainer bags over them because I noticed there was some bug bites on the leaves. And so in order to protect it a little bit, now that I'm starting to attract more bugs on the cabbages itself, it was a good idea to go ahead and bag them up. It's harder to see on here, but this is the cabbage here. It's forming pretty good. This is one of the medium-sized ones. The cabbage head is forming in the center, and so I went ahead and bagged those up just to give them a little bit additional protection. I'm starting to get flowers again on the smallest of the Meyer lemon tree. And so as you can see, they're starting to flower. And this year I'll probably just go ahead and let it flower and produce some more lemons on the bigger of the two Meyer lemon trees. This one here, as you can tell, is starting to change color. So it's probably very close to getting the harvesting period for that. I went ahead and had a spare container that was about 5-6 inches tall. So I went ahead and grew some more butter crunch lettuce on the left and the red leaf lettuce on the right. I'll show you the bucket that I started first that is doing really well. So I had a lot of tomatoes that needed to go into its final resting home, and so I went ahead and I put them in the hydroponic coolers for myself, and I set them up in rows. So I'll have a row of tomatoes, and on the left there you'll see a row of peppers, and then I'll probably put the zucchini over here because it does like a lot of sun. Zucchinis or cucumbers I'll put over here, and they like a lot of sun. And so I'll put everything and use up the space here on the backside because they get a lot of morning sunlight, and then they get the last of the afternoon sunlight. So I get the best sunlight over here on the right side. So I'll go ahead and plant the things that like a lot of sun. Now here are the rest of my peppers and tomatoes that haven't made it to its final resting home. I think what I'm going to do is next week it looks like there's a few days of rain coming on, and so on a rainy day or a very cloudy day, I like to take those days as opportunities to go ahead and move the transplanting of the almost maturing vegetable plants. So my tomatoes and peppers, they're almost ready to go ahead and move to its final resting home into the hydroponic coolers. And so what I'll do is on a rainy day, since we have a few rainy days back to back, I'll go ahead and wait till those rainy days when I have nothing else to do in the garden or don't really want to be outside that much. I'll go ahead and take these baskets full of seedlings that have kind of started to mature, and I'll go ahead and plant them into the hydroponic coolers. So now here is the lettuce. As you can tell, maybe you can't see it as well, those little black specks, those are little bugs that got inside the bag. It's amazing how even with the mesh netting, they have a tendency to somehow find its way inside. So I like to come out here, when I'm out here 4 times a day, I like to come through and just squash them, and then I turn the bag inside out and then put it back on. But look at that lettuce. It is definitely ready to harvest. The leaves are really big. It's time to get them cut and let them basically be a cut and grow method. So what I'm going to do is as we get closer to lunchtime, I'll come through here and I'll go ahead and cut them down and let them grow back again. Here's the cabbage itself. The head is forming in the center and looking pretty good there. And I'll go ahead and I'll probably come through here later today and just check for bugs, just in case that they somehow made its way inside of here. But as you can see, the head is forming inside. I did cover it with the mesh netting. I don't really care about the leaves on the very outside. Plus these 5-gallon strainer bags, they actually aren't big enough now that this plant has gotten so big. The outer leaves don't fit into the bag. So instead of trying to force it, I went ahead and just only covered about half of the leaves from the center in. And so that is covered and protected pretty well. Then my corn here, just grew a few just for basically shits and giggles. And then here are the rest of the sugar snap peas. Got a lot coming in here. So I think what I'll do here in the next 2 or 3 days is I'll go ahead and make a little stir fry and throw throw any remaining amounts that I have that aren't part of the stir fry. I'll go ahead and put them in a salad. But basically harvesting sugar snap peas and snow peas literally every other day, and having those. I definitely planted a lot. I'm trying to think how many sugar snap and snow peas I planted, but I know I planted more than 100, and so I got quite a few that I'm dealing with right now. Looks like I got a rabbit in the yard again. It just, where is that sucker at? Yeah, they just, no matter what I do, there just seems to be rabbits in the yard. So that's why I try to keep things off the ground. Last year, as I've told you before, I went ahead and I left my cucumber and bean plants kind of on the ground, on the grass, and then came home from work and noticed that they ate the tops of the leaves, the young tender leaves. And so this year I went ahead and put I went ahead and placed the beans and the cucumber plants up on top of the car here, just so that way they don't get at them as easily. So here are the rest of my tomatoes on the right. I got the beans here on the middle and the left, and I got quite a few plants. And unlike last year, not having too much issue with the leaves being eaten because I kept them off the ground. Now over here on the hood of this old car, I have I have more beans. Yeah, I have quite a few beans. Here are cucumbers actually. So cucumbers are coming in nicely, and got probably 3 containers of cucumbers and some zucchini coming in. And the ones that sprouted the first were the beans, and then these are the zucchinis, and so they move a little bit slower. These here are cucumbers again. I got the English cucumbers and the pickling cucumbers, so I kind of have them divided. Looks like I have the pickling cucumbers on the right and the longer cucumbers here on the left. And then I got additional beans here on the back side here. And so everything's coming in pretty good. My cucumbers and my zucchinis are looking pretty good. And so that's a little bit of update this period in time with the garden. And I'll be back through here in about 10 to 14 days to give you an update as I move along here in the gardening season. So take care.